yourself, trying to tell stories. Not necessarily everything you take is going to be golden. You've got to understand.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Light, the collective by creators for creators. In today's episode, we're speaking to the amazing Ben Ingram, who is a creative from Dorset. So, Ben, how are we doing?
Hey there, George. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So, you're from Dorset, which obviously has, as a Devon lad myself, I know it's next county on and some wonderful coastline up there, but you really are sitting in the heart of, well, am I right in saying the Purbeck Isles?
Yeah. I'm currently living in the Purbeck Isles. We're absolutely blessed down here. We've got Corfe Castle, we've got Durdle Door, Loworth Cove. There's so many brilliant locations to sort of visit as a photographer in my sort of local area. It's fantastic.
You really have sort of everything on your doorstep, kind of pardon the pun. It's Corfe Castle, like you said, you've got Durdle Door, obviously the big one, and even places like Lulworth Cove. They're all sort of 15, 20 minutes away from you, really.
Yeah, they are not far away at all, and it's been like a blessing for me, really. During lockdown, it's sort of seen as a bit of a taboo to travel too far in the last sort of year or so, really. So I've been very lucky that my sort of local shoots have been absolutely fantastic. I've been really blessed with the sort of locations in my local area.
Yeah, I mean, of all the locations to be in a lockdown, it's not too bad as it goes. But, perhaps does it become a little bit same old, having to do the same sort of locations every time? Obviously, as a creative, you want to be going out and testing yourself. Does it kind of feel like that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. Like one of the sort of things I really want to do is get out there and explore the world. Like the many accounts on Instagram I'm inspired by, I always see them traveling across to like the Alps and Norway and stuff like that. And as beautiful as the Purbeck Isles are, sometimes I'm just like, I want to explore somewhere else. You know what I mean? So yeah, it can get quite.
I completely understand that, and it's sort of that sense of almost like entrapment a little bit. I know you obviously, it sounds like, you could be in a lot worse place to be in a lockdown, but
yeah.
Does it ever kind of play on you a little bit that you kind of don't want to go out and take the mick and go to these places because perhaps they're not, although we're saying they're on your doorstep, perhaps they're not necessarily in your back garden, if that makes sense. And obviously with the travel restrictions.
Yeah, no, I mean, for example, for the first lockdown, I just bought a new Sony camera.
Just to clarify, Ben, we're the first lockdown in the UK, so back in March 2020.
Yeah, back in March 2020.
Yeah,
I bought my first ever full frame camera, and I'd just finished university, so I was sort of amidst lockdown. I was like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, of course.
And I bought this full frame camera, without trying to sort of really take the mick and potentially spread the virus far and wide, I basically stayed as local as I could, and I was just taking photos around my hometown and try and really be creative just on my doorstep.
So where is your hometown for the people at home, Ben?
So I live in Wool in the Purbeck Isles, so it's a very small sort of British sort of countryside village. So there's not many opportunities for photography there, but I tried to make it work. And as the sort of the lockdown restrictions started to lift a bit more, I moved a bit further out into the Purbeck Isles. I started to head towards Corfe Castle. I've got a particular shoot from that's really special to me.
I was going to say, Ben, some of the work that's featured within your chapter is, well, to put it quite frankly, stunning. And I know obviously some of it is, only from sort of local to you, but you really have done some incredible things with the sort of short amount of. It's a strange one. Obviously, Purbeck Isles is full of locations, but it's all the same locations near enough. But you've really captured them all beautifully in different angles and different sort of framing techniques and perspectives that you've gone for. In fact, there's a shot of Durdle Door, only sort of, I don't know how to put it. It's a different angle to what you would normally see on Instagram. It features within your chapter. And what I was going to say is, perhaps, has your creativity been tested in the fact that you're having to now think outside the box with the locations you would normally go to? Does that make sense? Sorry, that's.
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head there, George. One thing I've found, sort of, as a photographer, trying to sort of keep within sort of safe bounds in the pandemic. And I don't want to, you know, like you say, I don't take the mick. I've tried to sort of revisit these locations that I've gone to many times and tell a different story each time. And fundamentally, what I most enjoy about photography is just being able to tell a story. I've always been like interested in storytelling. I've always sort of really enjoyed telling stories as kids and having stories read to me as a kid. But like as I've grown up, that sort of storytelling and creativity is something I've always been really interested by. So I was never really good at art or anything like that. And as soon as I sort of managed to get my hands on photography after starting my degree, I was just like, wow, I really click with this. And like being able to tell stories with a camera is something I really enjoy. And like I was trying to sort of say, going back to certain locations to try and tell a different story to what other people might have told already is something I sort of find that really drives me.
That, you know, it's really interesting hearing someone say that, you know, kind of resonates a little bit with myself. I wasn't necessarily ever an artist at school. And, you know, I thought you'd done photography for many more years than that. So just touching on what you said there, you know, you kind of inspired by, you know, as a child, you enjoyed telling stories and being read stories. And now, you know, as you enter adulthood, it's sort of, you want to convey those stories in your own way now.
100%.
But what I find interesting is you only picked up a camera sort of at degree level, or was there something before that?
Yes. So, truth be told, the first camera I ever owned was a little sort of bridge SLR camera. I believe it was like a Panasonic that I'd got for about £100 when I was probably like 15 or 16. It was during GCSE level, and I took media studies. And essentially, my uncle was about to get married, and I decided to get myself like a bridge camera. And I said to my uncle, I was like, hey, I'm doing media. I'll take the photos for your wedding.
That's a brave move. That's a very brave move.
I had this bridge like SLR camera. It was a pretty awful camera in comparison to what I've got right now. And, you know, I took photos during the wedding day. And if I'm being honest, those photos were absolutely awful. But I really enjoyed that sort of experience. Unfortunately, it wasn't really another sort of 3 years until I seriously picked a camera up again when I had done sort of camera workshops during university, and I realized like, wow, actually if I use a camera in this specific way, after I'd learned about settings, I was like, wow, I can really actually make something cinematic here and tell an interesting story with this.
But I tell you what, like, credit to yourself, mate, is the fact that, you know, you can acknowledge that it wasn't your best work back then, but, you know, do you still have those moments now where you kind of have to be honest with yourself and go, yeah, it's not great, but what do you take from those moments?
100%. I've definitely had many times where I'm going out for a shoot to try and get some photos to tell a story of a location, and I come back and I'm just really sort of unsatisfied with what I've produced. And especially with sort of, you know, the modern way of telling stories is with like Instagram and social media. That's how most people consume their stories. Unfortunately, the way that sort of platform is designed, it's mainly designed for like quick consumption and like quick turnaround and stuff like that. And I find it can be quite damaging to like your creativity, in fact, in the way that, you know, you have to almost push yourself to get like so many photos per week, and you can feel quite unmotivated when those photos don't perform as well as the last ones.
That is very interesting. That is
I'm trying to teach myself more about, you know, just going out for yourself and trying to tell stories, and not necessarily everything you take is going to be golden. You've got to understand that.
That's an incredibly interesting way of sort of putting it, and kind of links in with what I was going to go on to next. So that the fact that you've mentioned that, perhaps the best way of putting it is social media, in short, is kind of encouraging short form storytelling. Is that kind of what we're hinting at here?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
And you know, you talk about how it's this constant push for just content, like just to keep going. But and you say that damages creativity. So if you put that on top of, you know, not being able to get out anyway as much as we normally would, and having the travel restrictions in place, that's another thing to creep onto creativity. So what have you been doing to sort of challenge that? Has there been moments where you think, I really can't be asked, like I just don't want to do this anymore? Has that happened to you?
Yeah, once again, you've hit the nail on the head. Like, coming from a degree coming from doing a sort of creative degree to sort of being landed in a pandemic where, you know, content has to be constantly sort of cycled really quickly, and just sort of maybe not being able to always meet that because you've got, you know, I'm a young adult, I've got other sort of commitments and stuff amongst the pandemic. It, you know, it can be quite like, sometimes you have that moment where you're like, am I really like cut out for this? But like, I feel really blessed that I've, with the work that I have produced so far after buying a camera last year, I just feel honestly blessed with the amount of respect my work has been shown online. So that really does drive me to, as soon as, you know, everything's back to normal, really give it something, try and do my best and get my name out there.
It's funny you've mentioned that. Obviously, your work has been featured on, well, multiple accounts now. You've seriously grown in the last year. Would you say sort of growth and achieving goals plays a part in sort of motivation to keep yourself going?
Yeah, definitely. I think like another thing that really drew me to sort of photography and creativity in particular is I'm really sort of enamored by this idea of creating something and showing it to people and saying, hey, I made that. You know, really being proud of something and saying, wow, I created that thing. Like that's another thing that really drives me. So
And
yeah,
no,
go on.
I was going to say, so would you say you perhaps, you know, the way I'm kind of looking at it from my own perspective, from what you've said already, perhaps social media, as great as it is, and the fact that you've said that, you know, having these features and having these comments and, you know, people getting involved, interacting with your work, and it kind of inspires you to keep going. But at the same time, you've also been quite honest and said that, you know, it plays a part in kind of pushing you for this constant need for posting and being creative and getting your work out there, that perhaps social media is like a double-edged sword. Is that a nice way of looking at it, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that it's both a blessing and a curse as a creative.
And well, I mean, given the current day and age and the fact that sort of the way creators have to be, you know, they rely on platforms like Instagram now to even, you know, you can't really find work without it. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, that's definitely a fair comment. Like, so many big companies put themselves out there on these platforms, and if you want to be able to eventually work with potentially big clients, you've really got to have a portfolio of work on those same platforms that you can sort of share a connection with.
And as a result, subsequently, perhaps you're left feeling trapped in the fact that although you can't keep up necessarily with the workload that you would normally be producing because of the pandemic, would you say this has left to any low points during the past year?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that, you know, the lockdown has been plain sailing. It's like, it's definitely, I think, really, it's sort of impacted the particular industry that I want to get into. I'm a really sort of usually I'm a pretty optimistic person, so I'm just sort of really looking forward to seeing what sort of opportunities might come as soon as everything sort of starts to come back to normal, because I'm sure many people, small businesses and all that sort of stuff, are going to need creatives moving forward after these sort of horrible times that we're in.
Well, I think you know, to kind of borrow a phrase you've been using throughout, to hit the nail on the head again, to say the fact that, well, I think this industry, the one we're in, you know, being a part of a project like this, and I feel like more things like this are going to come about. I feel like more job vacancies, new roles are going to be created. I feel like everyone's going to be relying on something in-house, which is obviously a silver lining. But when is that silver lining going to happen? It kind of feels like a long way away. And again, is this another thing that you kind of have to block out, or do you strive to achieve that as a next goal to kind of keep you going?
I think what's important as a creative is sort of as important as it is to sort of look ahead and have goals. Everyone's got to have goals. It's sort of important to remind yourself where you are now and sort of be thankful for what you've got at this point in time, because you can look ahead to sort of photographers, videographers who might have much bigger followings than yourself, and you think, oh man, like how did they do that? You know, did they get all these opportunities that I didn't get? You've just got to be thankful for where you are in the moment. Just work on every day what you can achieve each day, rather than sort of thinking, oh, well, I've got to do this in the next 5 years. I think that's really important, as to just, you know, a daily drive.
Do you know what? That's something I've thought about myself. You know, it's funny you brought that up in this chat, and the fact that you have to learn to sort of appreciate things in the moment. And perhaps is that something that's, you know, is that resonating a bit more with you, not just appreciating each day as it comes, but metaphorically speaking, in the fact that, you know, perhaps you appreciate how lucky you are to live where you live now. And is that something that you've kind of learned to recognize because of the pandemic?
Oh, 100%. I think, like, one thing I sort of felt during this pandemic is I feel like I'm sort of in Groundhog Days most days. I feel like I'm just living the same day, you know, waking up, going on my
Yeah.
desk, looking for jobs, this sort of thing. But you know, once we leave the sort of restrictions we've currently got on top of us, I definitely think I'm going to appreciate each day, like, just so much more, because I'll have something to look forward to, and I can, you know, move on. And I think we've got exciting stuff to come for everyone.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And, you know, if you were to look forward now and, you know, where is next for Ben Ingram? Where is, what's the next thing after, you know, the pandemic, you know, perhaps not comes to an end as such, but, you know, when the restrictions lift, perhaps looking into the summer, looking into what's in the future, where's like the first place you want to be going, and what stories are you going to be telling? You know, what's next for you?
Yeah, I would love to sort of work with small businesses in my area to sort of tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of thinking, like, career wise. I
Okay.
think looking at, like, photography as just something that I just absolutely love, and, like, has become part of
Yeah.
my life. I would
Let's
say,
just before you Karen, it's interesting you've said that. I think it'd be silly not to touch on the point you've just made there, and the fact that you can see photography as either a career or as a passion. And
hmm, yeah,
right
for me, it's
now,
both, which I think is brilliant.
oh, of course, and loving your job is what everyone dreams of. But it's funny you said that, because perhaps without even realizing, you start to see it as a career rather than just a passion. But am I wrong in saying that? Perhaps it is still more of a passion than a sort of a career choice right now.
Yeah, I mean, that can be a valid concern, that eventually, once you know, get so much regular work, which I'm looking forward to eventually, you
Yeah, of
might
course.
sort of think, you might get home from work and think, well, the last thing I want to do is pick up a camera. And I hope that never happens to me. But it's important to, you know, try and challenge yourself creatively so that you can keep it fresh, and that you never get bored. But what I was going to say, sort of in regards to, like, photography being a passion for
Yeah,
life.
and what's next for you, sort of creatively? Perhaps it's the
Yeah,
best way I should have said it in the first place.
I would love to sort of travel around the world and sort of tell more stories outside of Dorset. So that's, like, something I want to do aside from a
Are we talking
career.
about sort of leaving the UK? Are we where
Yeah,
are we
yeah.
going, Ben?
Around,
Where's next for you?
short term, I'd say explore more of the UK, just being a bit more COVID smart. But as soon as the world sort of settled down more, there are many places I'd love to visit. Norway, many of the
Mm.
Scandinavian countries I'm really interested by. Canada, the States. There's so many beautiful countries in this world that we live in that I'd love to visit.
And it's
And
interesting you said that, because being in a project like this, I know you're meant to sort of meet the other people involved in the book, but from someone who's sort of being cultured, I guess is the best way to put it. Something that I'm learning is some of the incredible landscapes out there I wasn't even aware of. And I'm hoping that by yourself being involved in the project, you'll kind of learn in the same way that I have from these people.
mm,
And is that something that perhaps excites you? You know, there's a whole new world of creatives out there that you haven't even met yet.
oh, and that's one of the absolutely brilliant things about social media. I talked about it being a blessing and a curse. One of the blessings of it is just being able to meet so many like-minded people.
Hmm.
And I can't wait to, you know, go out there, take photos, tell stories, and just meet some amazing people through photography.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, like, it's such a shame in the fact that it all kind of feels so far away still, doesn't it? And does it ever kind of drain on you seeing other countries, positions they're in, or do you just kind of block that out and you focus on you?
Yeah, I think the latter is probably more where I stand. It can be sort of like, oh damn, New Zealand, like they're having so much fun,
Yeah.
but we're all in the same boat here in the UK, and there's so many talented sort of UK creatives that I look up to. That it just I sort of reminded that I'm not the only sort of creative in the UK that's in this boat. We'll all be able to move on eventually.
Yeah, of course. Just want to dabble on sort of a couple of the photos from within your chapter, and before before the chat ends, and you've said all these incredible things, and sort of really kind of makes you think. You've said a lot of thought-provoking sort of comments to do with sort of self-motivation, keeping yourself going, challenging yourself creatively, all those kind of things. But ignoring all of that, you really have achieved some incredible work. And there's a particular shot which, for those people at home watching, if you do end up getting one of the books or you choose to, invest in one of the books, there's an incredible double-page shot of what looks like, is it a sunrise at Corfe Castle?
Yeah, that's correct. Probably to this day still one of my favourite shoots I've ever done.
One of, or the favourite?
I'd probably say the favourite. It's almost sentimental to me how stunning that morning was.
Talk me through that morning. What was going through your head? Were you planning for something like that? Had you sort of done the research behind it?
It's funny, like I'm part of like a community of photographers in Dorset, and I sort of started to see sort of similar people were sort of saying, oh, this week is looking good for sunrises, because the conditions for mist were basically looking very possible. And I saw those sort of comments on Facebook. I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So I messaged with my friends, and we woke up at about 2:30 in the morning and headed straight to Corfe.
Wow.
2:30 in the morning, headed straight to Corfe. We arrived at Corfe about 3 a.m. And when we got there, it was basically looked like it was so foggy that you couldn't even see the castle from standing at the bottom.
What time of year are we talking? Is this in the summer?
This was in the summer, yeah.
So we've sort of come out of lockdown restrictions a little bit, and we're now talking sort of summer sunrise. So sunrise to me, that's not for another couple of hours at least.
Oh yeah, we wanted to make sure we could get there early so we could get all the light that we'd be given. And we ended up staying from about 3 a.m. to about 7:30. So we were there for a long time.
Yeah, wow. I bet you were knackered the rest of the day.
Funnily enough, the adrenaline of getting those shots kept me awake for most of the day, which was quite weird. But
yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah, so we got to the top of this hill, which is where sort of most people suggest taking photos, and there were already people who were there earlier than us. And they said to me and my friend, they said, "Oh, you've missed it. The castle's covered over now. We managed to get some shots about 20 minutes ago." And we were sort of a bit like, "Oh, we're gonna have to come back another day," but we ended up staying there.
So you just held out.
We held out because I was certain that something was going to come from it. And about 20 minutes later, I'd say, the sun started to rise over the horizon, almost like the Lion King.
That's like the Lion King. Wow, that's quite a comment.
The sun just burst through that mist, and it cut through and revealed the castle there. And I was absolutely taken aback by like what was in front of me.
Because
what I'm annoyed at myself now is that like I wanted to make sure I got the sharpest image I possibly could on my 85. So I sort of took probably 50 photos from the same angle, and I think if I was to do that shoot again, I'd make sure to sort of explore around and try and look for many more different compositions. That's probably what I'd do if I was to do it again. But still, to this day, that sunrise shoot was spectacular.
Do you know, it's funny that even with what you said is, in your own words, your favorite shot, you still, as a creative, and I think this kind of, plays sort of dividend to the whole industry, there's things that you can take from that and learn from that, and that you would do differently again. And I think, if we're going to wrap up the whole chat and sort of look back on it, living in the moment. You learn to appreciate where you are, appreciate the
Mm.
UK, appreciate the locations you're in, you know, and you're still learning to create, even in the situation that we're in now, and take new directions with it the next time you get the opportunity to.
Yeah.
Surely that's a big credit to yourself.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to sort of end our chat on is if anyone's going to listen to this,
Mm.
just to remind yourself to live in the moment and don't sort of look at every other creator who you might think is way better than you, and that you're never going to be able to achieve those sort of shots.
Mm.
Just remind yourself and sort of be thankful for where you are now compared to where you were sort of 2 years ago or something like that. Always build on yourself. Don't look at everyone else's progress.
Well, I think that's almost poetic. It's I think that's the perfect way to end it. And you can see Ben's Instagram on the screen. It's been on screen the whole time, and make sure to go and check out his work. It's simply exceptional, and obviously you'll see more of Ben's work through the Chasing Light Collective socials pages, and obviously the book will have Ben's work in it as well if you can't get enough of him just from those. So Ben, again, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and
Pleasure. I really enjoyed this.
And I hope the project's helping you as much as it is me. I'm learning culturally all kinds of things, but I'm hoping that even if this gives you the tiniest ounce of motivation just to kind of keep going at the moment, then it's going to help you out.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel so blessed to be part of this book with so many talented creators.